Chair would like to recognize the distinguished, honorable, hardworking Rules Chairman.
Good morning, Mr. President. It is a beautiful day, and it's supposed to thunder and lightning tomorrow, which I like too. But thank you for allowing me to be your Rules Chair and your Journal guy. And it's getting loud around my desk here. A moment in history, if I can find it. Excuse me, please. There it is. Ivan Allen Jr. was born in Atlanta, Georgia on this date, 1911. He was Atlanta's mayor for 8 years in the 1960s. He was the only Democrat Southern politician to testify in favor of Civil Rights Act in the 60s. Also, the senator from the 7th told me it's National Peanut Lovers Day. It's a lot of peanut stuff this year. And the senator from the 24th reminded me, because he's had to do it, today is True Confessions Day. Mr. President, the journal's been read and found to be correct.
Well done. As always, is there objection to dispensing with the reading of the journal? The chair hears none, and the reading of the journal is dispensed with. Is there objection to the confirmation of the journal? The chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. All senators who have bills or resolutions, please bring them to the Secretary's desk at this time. Mr. Secretary, first reading and reference of Senate bills and resolutions, please.
Senate Bill 614 by Senator Mullis of the 53rd, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 2 of Chapter 13 of Title 16 of the OCGA relating to regulation of controlled substances so as to provide that the
Health and Human Services.
Senate Bill 615 by Senator Mullis of the 53rd, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act providing for a new charter of the town of Lyerly, approved April 11th.
Slow go.
Senate Bill 616 by Senator Mullis of the 53rd, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act to create the state of Chattooga County, approved March 29th, 1983, as amended.
Slow go.
Senate Bill 617 by Senator Mullis of the 53rd, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act to continue the existence of the Atlanta Independent School System under the management and control of the Atlanta
Urban Affairs.
Senate Bill 618 by Senator Mullis of the 53rd, a bill to be entitled an act to incorporate the city of Buckhead City to provide a charter to provide for boundaries and powers.
Urban Affairs.
Senate Bill 619 by Senators Rahman of the 5th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 12 of Title 45 of the OCGI relating to the governor so as to establish the office of outdoors.
Government oversight.
Senate Resolution 65 by Senator Tippins of the 37th, a resolution honoring the lives of C.W. and Myrtle Matthews and dedicating a road in their memory and for other purposes.
Transportation.
That completes the order, Mr. President.
First reading and reference of House bills and resolutions, please.
House Bill 274 by Representatives Ballinger of the 23rd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 2 of Chapter 11, Title 15 of the OCGA relating to juvenile court administration so as to provide for a salary supplement for certain juvenile court judges to provide.
Judiciary.
House Bill 304 by Representatives Lott of the 122nd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 48 of the OCGA relating to revenue and taxation.
Finance.
House Bill 689 by Representatives Gaines of the 117th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 2 of Chapter 3 of Title 35 of the OCGA relating to the Georgia Crime Information Center.
Judiciary.
House Bill 725 by Representatives Lim of the 99th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 44-12-280 of the OCGA relating to the Council on American Indian Concerns.
Government oversight.
House Bill 839 by Representatives Thomas of the 39th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to incorporate the city of Mableton to provide a charter for the city of Mableton to provide
State and local government.
House Bill 895 by Representatives Crow of the 110th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 16 of Title 17 of the OCGA relating to discovery and criminal procedure so as to provide.
Judiciary.
House Bill 911 by Representatives Ralston of the 7th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to make and provide appropriations for the state fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022 and
Appropriations.
House Bill 934 by Representatives Lever of the 33rd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Part 1 of Article 5A of Chapter 8 of Title 48 of the OCGA relating
Finance.
to House Bill 1004 by Representatives Mader of the 56th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 20 of the OCGA relating to education so as to provide for the establishment of unified campus.
Public safety.
House Bill 1069 by Representatives Williamson of the 115th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 3 of Title 37 of the OCGA, Point 3, relating to examination.
Health and Human Services.
House Bill 1103 by Representatives Chiokas of the 138th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 40-2-167 of the OCGA relating to separately stated fees and rental agreements.
Transportation.
House Bill 1193 by Representatives Gamble of the 15th and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Part 3 of Article 1 of Chapter 18 of Title 43 of the OCGA relating to licenses for funeral directors and embalmers, so provide.
Regulated industries.
House Bill 1224 by Representatives Martin of the 49th and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Chapter 5 of Title 48 of the OCGA relating to ad valorem taxation of property so as to revise.
Finance.
House Bill 1232 by Representatives Barton of the 5th and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Code Section 16-11-112 and Chapter 2 of Title 40 of the OCGA relating to
Public
vehicles.
safety.
House Bill 1234 by Representatives Ballinger of the 23rd and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Code Section 15-11-103 of the OCGA relating to right of attorney independent.
Judiciary.
House Bill 1343 by Representatives Clark of the 147th and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Code Section 38-2-151 of the OCGA relating to adjutant.
Veterans, military, and homeland security.
House Bill 1384 by Representatives Jenkins of the 132nd and others, a bill to town and act to amend Code Section 8-2-23 of the OCGA relating to amendment and revision of codes generally so as to require the Department.
Agriculture and consumer affairs.
House Bill 1388 by Representatives Burchett of the 176th and others, a bill to town and act to amend Code Section 9-13-142 of the OCGA relating to the requirements of an official legal organ.
Judiciary.
House Bill 1391 by Representatives Gooder of the 8th and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Article 2 of Chapter 12 of Title 17 of the OCGA relating to public defenders so as to revise the compensation of public defenders.
Judiciary.
House Bill 1409 by Representative Werkheiser of the 157th, a bill to be in town and act to amend Chapter 9 of Title 34 of the OCGA relating to workers' compensation so as to change
Insurance and labor.
House Bill 1418 by Representative Smear of the 135th and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend an act providing for a new charter for the county-wide government of Columbus, Georgia, approved April 5th.
Slow go.
House Bill 1428 by Representatives Estration of the 104th, a bill to be in town and act to amend the OCGA as to revise, modernize, and correct errors or omissions in.
Judiciary.
House Bill 1433 by Representatives Ballinger of the 23rd and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Code Section 35-6A-11 of the OCGA relating to the advisory board created and membership relative to
Public safety.
House Bill 1438 by Representatives Thomas of the 21st and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 32 of the OCGA relating to the Department of Transportation so as to amend in
Transportation.
House Bill 1441 by Representatives Collins of the 68th and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Chapter 38 of Title 43 of the OCGA relating to operators of private detective businesses.
Regulated industries.
House Bill 1452 by Representatives Gaines of the 117th and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Chapter 13A of Title 19 of the OCGA relating to dating violence protective orders.
Judiciary.
House Bill 1488 by Representative Campbell of the 171st, a bill to be in town and act to amend an act to provide for a new charter for the city of Pelham, approved April 28, 2016, as
Slow
amended.
go.
House Bill 1495 by Representative Dukes of the 154th, a bill to be in town and act to amend an act creating the Board of Commissioners of Seminole County, approved August 16, 1920, so as amended, so as to change the
Slow
description.
go.
House Bill 1509 by Representatives Gilliard of the 162nd and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend an act completely revising the laws relative to the governing authority of Chatham County, approved March 29, 1984, as amended, so as to change the description.
Slow go.
House Bill 1510 by Representatives Gilliard of the 162nd and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend an act relating to the school system of the city of Savannah and Chatham County, approved March
Slow
21st,
go.
1968. House Bill 1529 by Representatives Williams of the 168th and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend an act to provide for the supplement to the compensation, expenses, and allowances of
Slow
district.
go.
House Resolution 594 by Representative Smith of the 70th and others, a resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution of the State of Georgia so as to provide that county and municipal governing authorities shall be.
Finance.
That completes the order, Mr. President.
Mr. Secretary, will you please read reports of standing committees?
Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Agriculture and Consumer Affairs has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation that House Bill 1303 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Walker of the 20th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation that House Bill 56 do pass by substitute and House Bill 1346 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Strickland of the 17th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on State and Local Governmental Operations has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation that House Bill 771 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Anderson of the 24th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on State and Local Governmental Operations has had under consideration the following legislation, has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation that House Bill 897 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Anderson of the 24th District Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Mr. Secretary, will you please read bills and resolutions for the second time?
House Bill 1064 by Representatives Petria of the 166 and others. Income tax, certain retirement income for military service, provide exemption. House Bill 1147 by Representative Rhodes of the 120th and others. Game and fish, hunting and trapping of raccoons and possum year-round, authorize. House Bill 1233 by Representative Rhodes of the 120th and others. Natural Resources, Department of, earliest effective date for certain rules and regulations, delay. House Bill 1349 by Representatives Ridley of the 6th and others. Natural Resources, Department of, attempt to prevent net loss of land acreage available for hunting on state-owned lands, extend date. That completes the order, Mr. President.
All right, it's now time for our morning roll call. It is now time for the crossover roll call. Are there any motions to excuse? The chair recognizes the distinguished senator from the 33rd.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, y'all, on this crossover day. I ask for unanimous consent that we excuse the senator from the 9th for business outside the Capitol, sir.
Without objection, the senator from the 9th is excused. The chair recognizes the senator from the 44th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 38th.
Without objection, the senator from the 38th is excused. The chair recognizes the senator from the 21st.
I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 25th for business outside the Capitol.
Without objection, the senator from the 25th is excused. Are there any additional motions to excuse? The chair sees none. The secretary will call the roll. Senators, signify your presence by voting the A switch. The secretary will unlock the machine. All right, it's now time for a morning devotional, and I'd ask that all senators take your seats. All senators take your seats and cease all of those audible conversations, even the ones inside your head. Ask that our doorkeepers secure the chamber at this time. It's my honor to recognize the senator from the 39th to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance today and to introduce to us our chaplain of the day.
Please join me in the pledge to the United States flag. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
and the Georgia flag. I pledge allegiance to the Georgia flag and the principles for which it stands, wisdom, justice, and moderation. Yes. Good morning, Mr. President and colleagues of this esteemed body. I have the great pleasure to introduce to some and present to others our chaplain of the day, the Reverend Dr. John Foster. Reverend John Foster, PhD, is the senior pastor of the historic Big Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Atlanta, Georgia. One of the signature community outreach programs is called Beauty for Ashes, which provides care and response to those who have been impacted by homelessness or some other stage of life transition, which finds them on the street. Thanks to the generosity of Big Bethel, they are able to serve a number of individuals and families with items and services which help in their response to their current life circumstance. Dr. Foster himself has a distinguished career, both as clergy in the AME Church and as an educator at several colleges and universities. He has served as pastor in North Carolina, Texas, and of course now Georgia. He's also worked at several historically black colleges and universities, including Tuskegee University, North Carolina A&T State University, Prairie View A&M University, and Morehouse College as a faculty member, department head, dean, and vice provost. He's worked as a principal investigator, a project director on more than $50 million of community outreach projects over a 30-year time span. Ladies and gentlemen, the senior pastor of the historic Big Bethel AME Church here in Atlanta, Georgia, Reverend Dr. John Foster.
Good morning. To the Honorable Jeff Duncan, to Honorable David Cook, to the Honorable Sonia Halpern, to members of this assembly, thank you for the honor of being selected as chaplain of the day. I'm going to go from the story with Jesus beginning his ministry, and he said these words that we're going to focus on for about 1 hour and 58 minutes. He started his ministry saying, "Repent, for the kingdom of God is at hand." Repent, for the kingdom of God is at hand. Just to think about that for a moment, Jesus came with a story that said God's kingdom is here. In other words, he told them you didn't have to wait, you didn't have to look over the corner around the hill, but that God's kingdom was here. Now, the reality of the moment is he was saying that to a bunch of folk who were in a miserable situation. The life expectancy in Jesus' time of a male was 38 years old. People were dying from leprosy, all types of diseases that they didn't have medical knowledge for. And in addition to that, then they were in an occupied land. So how could Jesus come with a message of hope? How can he come with a message of joy, of saying the kingdom of God is at hand? Well, I'm glad you asked. I'm going to share 2 or 3 things that are even applicable 2,000 years later, that we can, at this time, still have the kingdom of God is at hand spirit within each side of us. The first is, Jesus is asking us to bear good fruit. The Bible teaches us that the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, goodness, kindness, against which there is no law. He says that you make God's kingdom come by having good fruit in your life. What about showing somebody some love? What about showing somebody some peace, some long-suffering, some goodness? That's a way that we can show God's kingdom. The second is not only for us to have those good fruit inside of us, but for us to sow seeds of good fruit. How can we do something even right now that will make sure that when we leave, there'll be a little bit more love, a little bit more joy, a little bit more patience and goodness and long suffering? The challenge for us today is wherever we go, then we leave, that place should be left off better. The third is to go and share your testimony. I must admit that I had not had any conversation with Senator Halpern before today, but just the 15 or so minutes with us where she shared her tremendous testimony of how she's gotten into the Senate of the great state of Georgia, it uplifted me. So how many of us have testimonies in our own lives that we can share that can cause people, even if they're in a dire situation, to lift their heads up and say, what a mighty God we serve. Share your testimony. The fourth is for us to forgive. Now, that's a hard one for a pastor. And you say, well, I thought you were a preacher. You should be good at forgiving. Well, let me just say it. Everyone has a thorn in their flesh. Amen. And so think about how many times we need to forgive, because our example is Jesus Christ. They spit on him. They crucified him. They said all manner of evil against him. But he still said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And then the last for the kingdom of heaven is that we should always remember, particularly during this season of Lent, is to pray and to seek God. This is a perfect example of where we're at today, where we should be praying and seeking God's will in our lives. Now, finally, I'm going to close with a story. As was given in my introduction, I've taught in historically black colleges about half my life, and I served as pastor about half my life. And many people come and ask me, they say, Dr. Foster, what made you want to leave industry and go to historically black colleges? And so my answer to them was very simple. I said I wanted to go there so that I could change things, so that I can make a difference, so I could impact the lives of students. Well, that's exactly what I would expect the answer of 90% of those who I'm talking to right now, is you're senators of the state of Georgia because you want to change things. My challenge to you is to change them for the kingdom of heaven, because Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Now, I've got one last thing to share with you, and I'll be through. See, that was a fast 2 hours, wasn't it? I'll go to the immortal theologian of all time, Stevie Wonder. He had these words. He said, they say that heaven is 10 zillion light years away, and just the pure in heart will walk her righteous street someday. They say that heaven is 10 zillion light years away, but if there is a God, we need him now. Where is your God? That's what my friends ask me. And I say it's taken him so long because we've got so far to come. Let's make our testimony that we did what we could to have God's kingdom here on earth even today. Let the people of God say amen. Now we're going to close in a word of prayer. If we can ask everyone to stand, please. Let us bow our head. Dear God, we thank you, we praise you, we lift up your name for being great and being mighty, but also, Lord, for saying something to us 2,000 years ago that is true today. The kingdom of heaven is at hand. So, Lord, beyond all of our trials and tribulations that we have on this side of the Jordan, also help us to know that there is your kingdom. Help us to go and do good today. Help us to go and show love today. Help us to go and make the day brighter for someone that we've come in contact with. And, Lord, help us to make a difference in somebody's lives. We give you the honor, glory, and praise. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. You may be seated.
They're all going to come see you in a second. All right, the Senate's going to come back to order. Are there any unanimous consents? The chair sees none. Does any senator wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? The chair recognizes the majority whip for a point of personal privilege.
Good morning, colleagues. I just wanted to come up and wish everybody a happy crossover day. And it's going to be a long day. We're going to work into the night. But if you get hungry, y'all pay attention. This is about food and beverage. We want to thank our sponsors for the fresh apple pies that are in the ante room over here. So as you work through the day, go in and get yourself a fresh apple pie. Compliments of R&A Orchards from Ella J. And they were brought down today by the Georgia Telecommunications Association. So thank you to our friends from the 51st District. Thank you very much, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 21st for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, I come before you today. Over the weekend, we lost an icon here in the region, Mayor Sam Massell. He passed away at the age of 94, and Mayor Sam Massell, I never knew him when he was mayor, but I got to know him after he left office, and we talked about his vision and how he created MARTA and helped create MARTA, and he also had a huge impact on Georgia 400, which was an economic engine for our state, and he was a great man. And he actually started off on the city council in the city of Mountain Park, and then went to the city of Atlanta and then became mayor. And I'm very good friends with his son, Steve. So I would, Mr. President, I'd ask for a moment of silence to keep Sam Massell and his family in our thoughts and prayers.
Senator has asked us all to rise for a moment of silence.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I echo your comments on Sam. Does any other senator wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? Chair sees none. You have a consent calendar of privilege resolutions before you. Does any senator wish to remove a resolution from the consent calendar? Is there objection or adoption of the resolutions on the consent calendar? The chair hears none, and the resolutions on the consent calendar are adopted. Are there any motions to withdraw and commit? You have a consent calendar of local bills before you. Mr. Secretary, are there any objections filed to any bills on the local consent calendar?
Mr. President, there are no objections filed.
Is there objection to agreeing the report of the Committee on State and Local Government, which is favorable to the passage of the bills on the local consent calendar? The chair hears none, and the report of the committee is agreed to. The questions on the passage of the bills on the local consent calendar. All those in favor vote yea, opposed nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bills on the local consent calendar, the yeas are 45, the nays are 0, and the bills having received the requisite constitutional majority are therefore passed. What purpose does the senator from the 26th rise?
Mr. President, I'd like to ask to suspend the rules in order that the bill be introduced, read, and assigned to a committee.
Have you spoken to the secretary about it? Just come up and speak to the secretary about it, and then we'll put you on the agenda. Chair recognizes the majority leader for a motion.
Mr. President, I move that Senate Bill 491 and Senate Resolution 623 be engrossed.
Mr. Secretary, can you read the captions to both Senate Bill 491 and Senate Resolution 623?
Senate Bill 491, a bill by Davenport of the 44th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 48 of the OCGI relating to revenue and taxation so as to create a qualified down payment savings program to be implemented by the Department of Revenue and for other purposes. Senate Resolution 623, a resolution by Senator Tippins of the 37th and others, a resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution of Georgia to provide for staggered 4-year terms of service for members of the Senate, to provide for the implementation of staggered terms of office for the members of the Senate and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
The majority leader has moved that Senate Bill 491 and Senate Resolution 623 be engrossed. Is there objection? The chair hears none. And the bill and resolution, there is objection. Would the majority leader like to speak to the motion to engross? Chair recognizes the majority leader to speak to the motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wasn't planning on coming to the well, but now that I have, I'm going to ask for an additional bill be engrossed. It's
That's not a proper statement from the well. We'd have to recognize you from your desk.
When I go back to my desk, I'm going to ask for another procedure. Thank you. I yield the well.
Does any senator wish to speak against the motion? The chair recognizes the senator from the 33rd.
Mr. President, please excuse me. I had heartburn. I take back my motion. I rescind my motion. I withdraw. I wasn't paying. I had heartburn.
So noted. There was multiple objections.
Oh, okay.
Are there any objections to engrossing Senate Bill 491 and Senate Resolution 623? There is none. It's waived. Senate Bill 491 and Senate Resolution 623 are engrossed. The chair recognizes the majority leader for an additional motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is my error. I omitted Senate Bill 516, who is a finance bill. Finance bills and ethics bills are engrossed.
The majority leader has moved that Senate Bill 516 be engrossed. Is there objection? The chair hears none, and Senate Bill 516 is additionally engrossed. All right, we're now going to move on to the rules calendar. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption of Senate Bill 609?
Senate Bill 609, a bill by Senators Mullis of the 53rd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 9 of Chapter 12 of Title 16 of the OCGA relating to access to medical cannabis so as to provide that the Georgia Access to Medical Cannabis Commission is subject to state procurement laws and further purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Watson of the 1st District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services offer the following substitute to Senate Bill 609, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 9 of Chapter 12 of Title 16 of the OCGA relating to access to medical cannabis so as to provide that the Georgia Access to Medical Cannabis Commission is subject to state procurement laws, to provide for information to be provided to Medical Cannabis Commission Oversight Committee, to provide that the Georgia Access to Medical Cannabis Commission is subject to open records laws and further purposes. Mr. President, Senator Tillery of the 19th and others offer the following amendment number 1 to amend the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services to Senate Bill 609 by striking lines 1 through 124 and inserting in lieu thereof the following: to amend Article 9 of Chapter 12 of Title 16 of the OCGA relating to access to medical cannabis so as to provide for information to be provided to the Medical Cannabis Commission Oversight Committee, to require the Commission to issue initial Class 1 and Class 2 production licenses by a date certain and further purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
The chair recognizes the senator from the 11th to speak to Senate Bill 609.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 609 was a Senate substitute offered in Health Committee. The sole purpose of the bill was to move the ball forward on getting medical cannabis to the folks on the registry. At this time, the process, most people would say, has been flawed, and the licenses have not been awarded to those who had prevailed in the process. So the substitute in the Health Committee that was offered gives the Commission a time certain of August 1st to award the licenses. It also provides for some transparency language in the process, and it also has some information or recommendations for new licensees when enough people are added to the registry. There is a friendly amendment coming from the senator from the 19th that I'll let him explain that limits the bill even further. I'm certainly in support of that amendment. I'll be glad to answer questions, Mr. President. If not, no questions, I'll yield the well.
You don't appear to have any questions. The chair recognizes the senator from the 19th to speak to his amendment, amendment number 1.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Senate, just to give you a little bit of history here, in 2015, this body, thank you, Mr. President. In 2015, this body allowed access to medical cannabis for children and other diseases that, for people who had chronic pain, chronic illnesses, et cetera. In 2020, we came back and set up a plan, a commission that would allow for the dispensing in Georgia of medicinal cannabis. We now sit here almost 2 years later, and those licenses have not been issued. The amendment is very simple in its form. It simply takes and strikes most of the underlying bill, leaving only the transparency piece. There was a comment from a member in the House, really good comment, about whether or not certain documents that were filed with the commission should be viewable to the public and subject to open records. We tried to keep some of that language, and I appreciate Representative Powell's work on that. And then the last part of this amendment is really the meat of it, and it's what I believe everyone in this chamber, everyone across the hall, and many families across this state want, which is a date certain for licenses. And you'll see that's on line 27. It says, the commission shall issue initial licenses under this part on or before May 31st, 2022. It's simple in its form, but obviously very wide-reaching in its impact. Thank you, Mr. President. If there are no questions, I'll yield the well.
You don't appear, you do have a question. Chair recognizes the senator from the 52nd with a question.
Thank you, Senator, and with Senator Yield.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for work on this. You said that you tried to keep some of the transparency, and I've just seen the amendment, and I'm trying to catch up here, so
Yeah.
if you could give me a little bit more in depth about the transparency.
Yeah, look on the line 15. The commission shall promptly provide any document or information requested by the Oversight Committee that is in its possession, provided that the commission shall not, and there were all these documents that were supposed to be crossed under the previous law that were crossed out. We eliminated those exceptions and added in the only exception that any information that would be exempt from public disclosure pursuant to OCGA 50-1872 or other federal privacy laws.
So if the senator would yield one more time, then you're saying not just the Oversight Commission, but it would be available to the public.
Well, the bill specifically says that information requested by the Oversight Committee.
Okay.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 53rd to your left.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Yield.
Yes, sir.
Isn't it true that a lot of times when we really feel like saying something, it's good to reframe ourselves?
Yes, sir.
And isn't it further true that if I really spoke my mind, I would have a lot to say about the process from the Cannabis Commission?
I'm sure the senator knows of what he
Isn't it true that it would not be positive, it'd be negative for how they conducted the whole process of selecting candidates for growers and so forth?
Well, Senator, I know you share the concerns of a lot of the members of this body who simply just want this needed medicine to be able to reach families and children.
Oh, indeed, and good answer. And isn't it further true and lastly true that I appreciate the committee sub, or the floor sub to improve the process as it goes across the way?
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Mr. President.
You have no more questions. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against Senate Bill 609 or Amendment Number 1? The chair sees none. We'll first take up the adoption of Amendment Number 1. Is there objection to adoption of Amendment Number 1? The chair hears none, and Amendment Number 1 is adopted. The question now is on the adoption of the committee substitute as amended. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute as amended? Chair hears none, and the committee sub as amended is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 52, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption of Senate Bill 487?
Senate Bill 487, a bill by Senators McNeil of the Third and others, a bill to be in town and act to amend Chapter 24 of Title 33 of the OCGA relating to insurance generally, so as to provide that diagnostic breast examination shall not be treated less favorably than screening mammography for breast cancer with respect to cost-sharing requirements and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Insurance and Labor recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Berg of the 11th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Insurance and Labor offered the following substitute to Senate Bill 487, a bill to be in town and act to amend Chapter 24 of Title 33 of the OCGA relating to insurance generally, so as to provide that diagnostic breast examination shall not be treated less favorably than screening mammography for breast cancer with respect to cost-sharing requirements and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
The chair recognizes our good friend from the coast, the senator from the 3rd, to present Senate Bill 487.
Good morning. Senate Bill 487 aims to diagnose breast cancer earlier by eliminating patients' out-of-pocket costs for medical necessary, diagnostic, and supplemental breast examinations. Eliminations out of pocket for diagnostic imaging would improve access and lead to more patients receiving earlier detection services. Additionally, this legislation is critical for breast cancer survivors, as diagnostic imaging is typically recommended as a primary breast image for breast cancer survivors and women with high risk for breast cancer. A screening mammogram would not be considered successfully completed if not followed up by a diagnostic imaging were not performed to rule out breast cancer or confirm the need of a biopsy. I'm hearing a lot of talking, and I'm trying to listen to y'all and read this too. I don't want to miss anything.
You just created a bunch of questions.
In 2022 alone, 9,170 people in Georgia will be diagnosed with breast cancer, and 1,410 will die from the disease. All cancer patients deserve fair and equitable access to the breast imaging that may save their lives. Please join me in supporting this critical legislation. I now yield the well.
The senator has yielded the well. The experienced senator has yielded the well. The chair recognizes the senator from the 31st to speak to the measure. Be gentle, the author's right in front of you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Since the senator from the third wanted to go sit down, I, as a son of a mother who passed away from breast cancer, want to thank you for bringing this bill forward. And I think to speak on behalf of my colleagues, our colleagues here in the Senate, thank you for bringing this legislation forward. Mr. President, I yield the will.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against Senate Bill 487? The chair sees none. The question's on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? The chair hears none, and the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 52. The nays are 1. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption to Senate Bill 96?
Senate Bill 96, a bill by Senators Jackson of the Second and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 17 of Title 45 of the USCGA relating to notaries public, so as to provide that the identification of persons who notaries perform notarial acts shall be evidenced satisfactorily by a valid Veterans Health Identification Card issued by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Veterans, Military, and Homeland Security recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Kirkpatrick of the 32nd District Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 2nd to present Senate Bill 96.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I present to you Senate Bill 96. It's a very simple bill. This bill passed the Senate just last year, got bogged down across the hall. This bill is a very simple bill that all veterans' health identification cards issued by the United States Department of Veteran Affairs be satisfactory and valid identification for whom notaries perform their notary acts. What happens is that currently the VA population, which is just under 700,000, 9% of this great state, many of them have a Veterans Health Identification Card.
Senator, if you could stand by for a moment. If I could get every senator's attention and remind you to give the senator in the well your respect. He has certainly earned it.
This is a very simple bill. It's a good bill for our veterans to let them use their notary, let them use their Veterans Identification Card for notary duties. We do it for a number of identification cards. This is just one standardized, recognized card by our government to let them perform, to let notaries be able to recognize this card to perform the acts. If there are no questions, Mr. President, I yield the well.
You don't appear to have any questions. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against Senate Bill 96? The chair sees none. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none and the main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 51, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption as Senate Resolution 131?
Senate Resolution 131, a resolution by Senators Mullis of the 53rd and others, a resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution so as to authorize the General Assembly to provide by law for pari-mutuel betting on horse racing, to provide for the disposition of licensing and taxation revenues from such activities and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Regulated Industries and Utilities recommends that this resolution do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Cowsert of the 46th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Regulated Industries and Utilities offer the following substitute to Senate Resolution 131, a resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution so as to authorize the General Assembly to provide by law for pari-mutuel or fixed odds betting on horse racing, to provide for the disposition of licensing and taxation revenues from such activities and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the distinguished Rules Chairman to present the measure, and well protected.
Now I've got helmet hair, Mr. President.
It looks better.
Thank you, honey. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited to be here. This is a great opportunity today to not only vote for the next level of Hope Scholarship and other things, but just to take Georgia into a different direction when it comes to agriculture. This is a constitutional amendment for horse racing. Now, voting for this, you're not voting for horse racing. You're voting to allow the people to vote for this bill. Now, where I come from, this kind of issue, people want to vote for it, either for it or against it, but they want to vote.
The next bill will be the enabling legislation, which is the mechanism that moves the bill. But this bill simply has a question on the ballot. And it says, Section 2, shall the Constitution of Georgia be amended to authorize parimutuel and fixed odds betting on horse racing in the state of Georgia? That's it. We're voting to put this on the ballot to allow the people to vote this November. That's what the constitutional amendment does. Now, I'll be happy to answer any questions. And I bet I'll know the answer. Oh, come on, that was kind of funny.
You have no questions.
Thank you. I appreciate your vote. It means a lot to me, and I would rejoice with your next election, and thank you for voting for this bill today. I yield the way, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 4th to speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also would like to speak in consideration of this Senate resolution. First of all, I'd like to thank Senator Calvert and his committee for working so diligently and hard with us on this bill. Senator Calvert and the committee took our bill that we actually started with last year and modified it and made some suggestions to it that made it a very, very good, favorable bill. So we're going to talk about the constitutional amendment first, but I want you to know that in the Regulated Industries Committee, the vote was 10-1. 10-1 for the constitutional amendment. Consequently, it was also 10-1 for the bill, but we're here to talk about the constitutional amendment. Let me clear up a few things for you. And there's some rumors floating around and different things, and people are confused, but the first thing I want to clear up is this is a constitutional amendment to allow people the right to vote. The right to vote. And that's what I want as a citizen. That's what you should want as a citizen for your constituents, the right to vote. I also want you to know that the word casinos is nowhere in this bill. Nowhere does this bill say the word casinos. Nowhere does this bill say the word slot machines. Okay? So I want you to get that in your mind because that's the way it is, okay? But it does allow horse racing, which is a big agricultural industry, and we'll talk a little bit about that in just a second. Many of you know that I have a passion for horses. Many of you know that I have a passion for horse racing. And we own horses. We join our own horses. We race horses. We breed them. We sell them, so forth and so on. So I know a little bit about what I'm talking about. And I'm actually licensed in Kentucky. I have been licensed in Florida and New York and Texas and other states. But as a CPA, when we first approached this subject, when Senator Mullis approached it with me, I told him, I said, Senator Mullis, as a CPA, I've got to make sure the numbers work and we understand it. Just because I got a passion for it or someone else got a passion for it, that doesn't mean that it makes good sense for the people of Georgia. And that's what we're here for. And so we went and raised enough money, around $75,000, to hire Georgia Southern University to do an economic impact study for us. And through that economic impact study, which was presented at the Regulated Industries Committee a few weeks ago, we learned that it is a significant impact to Georgia horse racing would be. It would create over 8,000 jobs, 8,500 jobs, and be almost a $1 billion economic impact industry, okay? 8,500 jobs, over $1 billion industry. We've already got a strong equine industry in Georgia, and this would just add to it. Many of y'all in here have got businesses that deal with horses, maybe insure horses, and this would add a different level to that. And like I said, it'd be a little over $1 billion economic impact. Let me put that in perspective to Florida and Kentucky. We got 10,700,000 people in Georgia. Kentucky's got 4.5 million people, And this is what our industry could be in a few years. In Kentucky, the equine, the thoroughbred industry employs over 22,000 people in Kentucky. The economic impact in Kentucky is over $3 billion a year. Now, we got 10.7 million people. Kentucky's got 4.5 million. We've got almost 3 times as many people. You can imagine what that economic impact would be to our state if we had horse racing in Georgia. Florida's economic impact is almost $3 billion and employs 23,000 people. Huge employment numbers, huge employment. Let me put that in perspective for what our other industries in Georgia that we all can relate to. Georgia Power in Georgia employs 8,300 people. The economic impact of horse racing in Georgia, economic impact is 8,500. Chick-fil-A in Georgia employs 6,200 people. Remember I told you economic impact of horse racing is over 8,000, over 8,500. Synovus Bank, 4,700. Lockheed, 5,000. So you can identify with these industries, and you can tell by these industries what this impact could be, not only to Georgia, but significantly to the agricultural industry in Georgia, which is in our southern part, mostly in our southern part of Georgia, southwest and southeast Georgia. Huge impact on that. The big thing with this is we travel all over the United States and all over the world looking for industry for Georgia. We pay millions and millions of dollars for those industries through incentives and tax credits and that type of thing. In this particular constitutional amendment and the bill there will be no tax incentives and no tax credits for anybody that wants to open up a track in Georgia. In the original bill, we had 3 tracks in Georgia. Through Senator Cowser's leadership and all, they expanded that to 5 tracks. It will be governed by the Horse Racing Commission, and that would be something that we don't have right now. We have horse racing going on in Georgia, but it's on the back roads and back streets of Georgia. And this would be a way to protect the animals and the jockeys and all. I saw a study the other day, 2 years ago, that the people of Georgia wanted, 70% of the people of Georgia wanted the right to vote on horse racing. I would encourage you to please vote green. This only allows the people of Georgia the right to vote. Mr. President, I would yield for questions.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 36th with a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the senator yield? I'm right
Where?
here.
Where? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Your
Thank you,
friend
ma'am.
from the 36th.
Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Senator, thank you for yielding. Could you speak a little bit more about the differences that as the Senate Committee on Regulated Industries changed the original language? I'm not sure. On line 25, it says the General Assembly shall provide by law, and goes on to say that the proceeds shall be used for the payment of operating expenses. It goes on down on line 29 and 30, and for the prevention and treatment of compulsive and addictive
Senator,
betting and gambling.
Senator,
yeah, I'm just pointing to, and then just if you can clarify how that on 2427 complies with or is different from line 44 and 45, which has a may, that they may cover the expenses of compulsive gambling and treatment. Thank you so much.
Mr. President, on this particular, we're voting on the Senate resolution, and I'd be happy to address that.
The current
in the bill.
The current measure in front of us is Senate Resolution 131.
Yes, that's what I'm reading.
And you're
from.
referring to that?
That's right.
Okay.
Thank you.
She's referring to Senate Resolution 131.
I don't have a copy of that.
State in the wilderness.
Yes, ma'am. Tell me again, please. What line?
Yes, Senator, I was trying to get a clearer understanding of the changes that were made in committee to the original language. And my specific question is, in line 24 through 29, it seems to be saying that the General Assembly shall provide that the revenues include covering the prevention and treatment of compulsive and addictive betting. And then line 44, 45 has a may include. And so I may be a bit confused here, but if you could clarify that language in two separate sections. One says shall cover costs of treatment programs for compulsive betting, and then on line 45 it says may include the expenses of programs for the prevention and treatment. Which are we doing, a may or a shall? And this is about, are we going to put this money into the treatment programs for compulsive gambling,
Yes,
which is
ma'am.
one of the concerns that our constituents have when we vote on a bill like this.
Actually, in the bill itself, Senator, there is a specific provision in the bill that a certain percentage of the pari-mutuel monies each day will go into a fund for treatment of people for gambling. It's also in educational purposes. It's for rural development also.
That's right. That's on lines, is it not true, on lines 46 and 47. But it has a may there, may include the expenses of these programs. For the compulsive betting, the education, healthcare, rural development programs, and including broadband and other communications technologies in rural areas. It's a long 2 or 3 lines on what the money could be spent for, but it has a may, not a shall.
Well, again, my understanding is a shall, and I'm sure the senator from the 53rd could clear that up also.
Well, line 45 is not true, says may.
Okay.
On the
Yes, ma'am.
substitute language for Senate Resolution 131.
Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the will.
Senator has yielded the well. The chair recognizes the senator from the 16th to speak to the measure.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'll give you this. I grew up with horses all my life. Showed horses, have owned horses, and so I'm familiar with horse business and the industry. My business insures horses and insures horse farms throughout the Southeast, so I have a little bit of the knowledge of what's going on there. I'm not specifically into the racehorse business. But I want to just give some observations of why I'm not in favor of where we are in the horse racing side. Georgia is the #1 place to do business. The #1 place to do business for 7 consecutive years. But the #1 problem of Georgia businesses is finding workers to work. And I believe that if we have a choice of where we put our workers, I believe in the businesses that are coming here we need to support. I have a manufacturer in my district that's building a $30 million plus plant. He's having trouble before they complete trying to find laborers and call me and says, can we get into prison labor? Can we get somebody? We need workers to support what we're building. Number 2 is a good business principle, is that this should be a win-win situation. You know, this is a principle financially that I find. When I give my money to Chick-fil-A, they give me a sandwich. There's an exchange of values. When I give my money for a Coca-Cola, there's an exchange of values. When I go to the doctor, there's an exchange of values. I give them my money, they give me service. When I buy a car, I give my money and I buy my car. There's an exchange of value for both parties where it's a win-win situation. But here's the issue. In gambling, for there to be a winner, there must be a loser. The system does not work unless there's a loser. It is not an equal exchange of value. Thirdly, it increases government support for gambling addiction. The Georgia Council on Problem Gambling, their mission statement said this: it is to ensure that every Georgia citizen who wants to stop gambling can keep the help and get the help and the treatment they need. There's already a problem with gambling. interesting that we are in the month of March, but this is in the past. Governor Nathan Deal on 4 executive orders, 2015, 16, 17, and 18, proclaimed that March was Problem Gambling Awareness Month. And we've all met people who could not handle gambling. It's a health problem because among those who are addicted to gambling, there's a high suicide rate as well that goes along with that. What is gambling? What is addiction? And I found this from one of the gambling addiction sites, and I thought it was interesting. It says gambling is addiction is the uncontrollable urge to continue gambling despite the toll it takes from one's life. Gambling is addictive because it stimulates the brain's reward system like drugs and alcohol. In fact, gambling addiction is the most common impulse control disorder worldwide. 4, gambling is a poor personal investment and economic decision. If you're teaching economics, you do not teach gambling as one of the ways to increase your wealth. I think it's a bad statement in that respect. And 5thly, gambling is not beneficial to the families of Georgia because those that cannot control it, money goes from the table, money goes for paying houses and insurance and the things that are there. And there are families that are there. I don't support it. I love the sport. I love the people that are sponsoring and pushing for it. I respect them. But for me, Georgia is the #1 place to do business. We don't have to take any compromises. We're full with that, and we need to be able to supply the workers for those industries that have committed to us and protect the families of Georgia. And Mr. President, unless there's questions, I will exit the well.
You have no questions.
Thank you, sir.
Chair recognizes the senator. Sorry, you had both buttons pushed. You can get with the senator over here for a moment. Chair recognizes the senator from the 15th to speak to the measure.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'll be very brief. I rise in support of this resolution. I believe that we have a lot of issues. I think the previous senator mentioned the various things. We drive automobiles, liquor is for sale and that kind of thing. It creates addiction. But at the same time, when you go in these kind of recreational events, you should use discretionary cash and logic and common sense when you do that. So this is just giving the citizens of the state of Georgia local control in the state of Georgia of whether or not this should happen or it should not happen. This is local control. That's all it is. You put the question on the ballot, the citizens vote yea or nay, yes or no. So I would encourage you to support this effort to allow the citizens of Georgia to vote this up or down. I support it. I think it will be good recreational additional for the state of Georgia. We got great football, basketball, and other sports, and I think this would add to the flavor of what's happening in the state of Georgia. I remember when we did lottery, a lot of the people were opposed to the lottery. A lot of people right now who benefit from the lottery proceeds and education, I guarantee you they were against it. They opposed it because it's gambling. They opposed it because it would be bad for Georgia. Right now, Georgia is a centerpiece in the nation for sponsoring education for their children. For students in the state of Georgia, children don't have to go outside the state of Georgia now because of the great program we have in the lottery, which will be administered by the Lottery Corporation here in Georgia. You can look for the negative in anything you do. I think one president once said, you can find the negative in anything, in anybody, if you look for it. So you can look for the positive in this. The great recreational opportunities for some of our citizens who want to avail themselves of this sport. And I encourage us to give the state of Georgia, the people of the state of Georgia, a chance to vote on this issue. Mr. President, there are no questions. I'll yield the well.
You have no questions.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 21st to speak to the measure. Sorry about that. You had both.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise, Senators, before you in full support of SR 131 and SB 212, and I'm going to talk about both of them so I don't have to come back up here. But, Senators, this bill is really about economic development and job growth. What this resolution and this bill will do is create a very robust and profitable equine industry. Before I talk about the resolution and bill, I have a couple of thank yous. First, I want to thank the Lieutenant Governor and his staff. Thank you. Second, the Senator from the 53rd for his sponsoring of this important legislation. Thank you. And second, I want to thank the Senator from the 46th. I don't see him, but he's Chairman of Regulated Industries, and they vetted this bill. And thanks for the Senator from the 4th for your knowledge of the horse racing industry. And then lastly, I want to thank the Senator from the 15th, the Dean, who's been working on this for 7 years with me, and thank you for all your hard work. This bill will help all of Georgia, especially rural Georgia. We will create a new industry in Georgia with horse racing, horse breeding, and sales that will have a $1.2 billion economic impact, particularly enhancing investment for horse breeding in the most rural parts of our state. The senator from the 16th came in opposition to this. He said we're the #1 state to do business. That is true. But when we go for that business, a lot of times with whether it's Rivian or whether it's the movie industry, we give tax incentives. There will be no tax incentives. This will be all private investment. We should be rolling out the red carpet for this industry. We will create thousands of jobs. There's 20 jobs per horse. We will attract international events to our state. I have a letter right here from the Breeders' Cup saying that if we build this track, we will be getting a Breeders' Cup. The Breeders' Cup is the Super Bowl of horse racing. It will bring over $100 million of economic impact. This will benefit our tourism industry. The private sector will create unique event space that will enable year-round events and attractions. They plan to build something very similar to the Battery, and it'll be a destination place to go besides horse racing. 90% of this revenue will come from out of state, which will help benefit our students in the Hope Scholarship. This industry will be built with all private investment, no tax dollars, no incentives. We will bring a $1.2 billion industry with no incentives. Let me repeat that, all private investment. I've been asked several times, why do you have to have a racetrack, and why is it necessary to create a breeding industry in Georgia? What happens is from the pari-mutuel wagering, the racetrack will set up a fund for breeders, and it will be called the fund. And then those proceeds will be paid out to those owners and breeders who breed, raise, and sell and race their horses here in Georgia. While an equine industry has existed in Georgia for many years, currently there is absolutely no incentive for owners and breeders to actually breed and raise their race horses here in our state. Rather, virtually all Georgia owners and breeders send their horses to other states such as Florida, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, Virginia, Maryland, and New York. Those states offer very lucrative breeders' awards for racehorses bred in their state. Thus, millions of dollars leave Georgia every year for the benefit of those states with racetracks and breeders' funds. I want to give you one example. I had a gentleman from Cobb County call me. He's got 15 racehorses. They all go to Ocala, Georgia. He's spending over $25,000 a month just on veterinarian bills. That could stay here. We have a very great veterinarian program over in the University of Georgia. I want to just share a couple figures with you, and then I'll close. This is just from the area of Ocala. Just in Ocala, it is a $2.7 billion economic impact. 1 in 4 horses in Florida is a thoroughbred. The direct thoroughbred industry impact is $1.5 billion, with a total exceeding $2.7 billion to the state. The racing sector continues to have a large economic impact with a $1.16 billion direct impact in Ocala alone. The total thoroughbred employment effect is 23,000 jobs, and thoroughbred sales generated $156 million in Ocala. Think about that. If we did that with our international airport, we would get 7% sales tax on every sale. So in closing, I would just say this. I don't think you can go wrong with allowing the people of Georgia to have the right to vote on this. So I would ask for your full support on this and vote yes both on the constitutional amendment, SR 131, and on SB 212. Mr. President, if there are no questions, I yield the well.
You don't appear to have any questions.
I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 20th. First, Mr. Secretary, will you read amendment number 1 that was just presented?
Mr. President, Senators Walker of the 20th and others offer the following amendment number 1 to amend committee substitute to Senate Resolution 131 by replacing may with shall on line 11 and replacing may with shall on line 45. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 20th to speak to amendment number 1.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I want to thank the chairman of the Senate Regulated Industries Committee and the senator from the 4th, the senator from the 21st, for their hard work on this measure. I appreciate the fact that it is crafted very carefully and very narrowly to only include on-track parimutuel betting, the way I read it. I'm not able to support, in good conscience, I'm not able to support this, but that's not what I'm up here to talk about. I hope you will see this as a friendly amendment. I think we need to replace on line 11 the word may with shall, because I think we want the General Assembly to shall provide for the operation, location, and regulation of the racetracks. I don't think that needs to be a may. And then as the senator from the 38th, I think, or 36 earlier stated, I do think it needs to be a shall on line 45 instead of a may. I'll be happy to answer any questions about my proposed amendment. Would appreciate you supporting that.
You don't appear to have any questions.
Thank you.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against Senate Resolution 131 or amendment number 1? The chair recognizes the senator from the 53rd to close the debate.
In honor of a few good men, I strenuously object. All right, but anyway, that was kind of funny. I want to thank the senator from the 20th. I know he's trying to bail us out of a problem, but let me explain the shall and the may. The shall means there'll be a pot of funds for people who have trouble gambling. The may will decide how to spend that money for different opportunities for the shall pot of money. That makes sense? Is that clear as mud? But anyway, the gist of this bill is a constitutional amendment to allow the people to vote. That's a simple fact. You're not voting for parimutuel betting or horse racing or whatever you're doing. You're voting to allow the people to vote. I've had 0 comments from my district. None. And I know some of you had, and most of you haven't, actually. And last year, I introduced all 3 gamblings. What do you call it? Sports betting, which is still in the House. They're trying to, I hope they don't screw it up, but they're trying to get it over here after crossover. And now horse racing, and I even did casino gambling. And in all that, I had 2 emails from my district against it. I was shocked. But in this regard, I've had none. And most of you have had none. Some of you have had. I know that Senator from the 23rd said he did, and some others, and Senator from the 32nd. But, you know, that's a crazy district. But anyway, I just want to ask you for your vote today. I'd appreciate it. I need it. This helps us in so many ways with Hope Scholarship, health care, Senator from the 26th, and many other needed projects around the state that's going to help our people and help our children. So thank you for your consideration. I would appreciate your vote. And I appreciate the senator from the 20th, but I'd rather you vote against the amendment, but I'm not going to die on that hill. So make your own choice on that. Mr. President, I appreciate the opportunity with my colleagues today, and I ask you for your vote. Thank you very much. I yield the will.
Senator from the 53rd has closed the debate. Our first action is to take up the adoption of amendment number 1. Is there objection to adoption amendment number 1? There is objection. He's already spoken to the objection. All those in favor of amendment number 1, vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. On the adoption of the amendment, the yeas are 35, the nays are 18, and amendment number 1 is adopted. Now we're going to take up the underlying measure, Senate Resolution 131. The questions on the adoption of the committee substitute as amended. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute as amended? The chair hears none, and the committee substitute as amended is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. Questions on the adoption of the resolution by substitute. All those in favor, vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. As a reminder, this is a required 2/3 vote. Approval. On the adoption of the resolution by substitute, the yeas are 33, the nays are 20. The resolution, having failed to receive the required 2/3 constitutional majority, is therefore lost. For what purpose does the senator from the 53rd rise?
I would like to ask for reconsideration. Does that take it to the foot of the calendar?
You have served notice for motion to reconsider. The chair's ruling is that motion to reconsider will be immediately. You've got 3 minutes to speak to your motion if you'd like to. Chair recognizes the senator from the 53rd to speak to his motion.
Mr. President, can I table the motion?
This is not the appropriate time to place the measure on the table.
I made a motion, so I can speak to it now. You can speak to the motion. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. And I am disappointed in my colleagues. I really was hoping you would let this go to the ballot, and that's all this did, was take it to the ballot. And I wish you would reconsider that. But thank you, Mr. President. I'll yield the way.
For what purpose does the senator from the 26th rise? He waives. Would any other senator like to speak for or against the motion to reconsider? The chair sees none. Senator from the 53rd has made a motion to reconsider Senate Resolution 131. All those in favor of the motion to reconsider vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. For what purpose does the senator from the 53rd rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to table Senate Resolution 131 after you tell me
Hold
this.
one moment. We'll recognize you for that motion in a minute. On the motion to reconsider Senate Resolution 131, the yeas are 38, the nays are 14, and this chamber has taken up the reconsideration. For what purpose does the senator, and the bill is now placed on the general calendar. For what purpose does the senator from the 53rd rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to table Senate Resolution 131.
Mr. Secretary, can you please read the resolution? All right, for clarification, are you referring to Senate Resolution 131 or Senate Bill 212?
131 currently.
It's not up for being tabled. It's been placed on the general calendar already because the motion to reconsideration passed. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption of Senate Bill 212?
Senate Bill 212, a bill by Senator Mullis of the 53rd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 50 of the OCGA relating to state government so as to provide for pari-mutuel horse racing in this state at a limited number of licensed equestrian centers, to create the Georgia Horse Racing Commission, to provide for the comprehensive regulation of pari-mutuel and related activities, and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Regulated Industries and Utilities recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Cowser of the 46th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Regulated Industries and Utilities offer the following substitute to Senate Bill 212, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 50 of the OCGA relating to state government so as to provide for pari-mutuel horse racing in this state at a limited number of licensed equestrian centers, to create the Georgia Horse Racing Commission, to provide for the comprehensive regulation of pari-mutuel and related activities, and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
For what purpose does the senator for the 53rd rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. With great haste and great disappointment, and with my colleagues, I move Senate Bill 212 to the table.
Senator from the 53rd has made a motion that Senate Bill 212 be placed on the table. Is there objection? The chair hears none, and Senate Bill 212 is placed on the table. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption of Senate Bill 566?
Senate Bill 566, a bill by Senators Burke of the 11th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 33 of the OCGA relating to insurance so as to clarify that under the Surprise Billing Consumer Protection Act, a medical or traumatic condition, sickness, or injury includes a mental health condition or substance use disorder, and that emergency medical services include post-stabilization services, and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Insurance and Labor recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Burke of the 11th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Insurance and Labor offer the following substitute to Senate Bill 566, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 33 of the OCGA relating to insurance so as to clarify that under the Surprise Billing Consumer Protection Act, a medical or traumatic condition, sickness, or injury includes a mental health condition or substance use disorder, and that emergency medical services include post-stabilization services, and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 11th to speak to Senate Bill 566.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 566 is a cleanup bill to the Surprise Billing Act that we passed a couple of years ago. It clarifies that an emergency room visit for a mental health acute condition is considered part or under the surprise billing law, and it also ensures that if you're admitted through the emergency room for a emergency problem, that admission is considered one visit with that emergency room visit. Be glad to answer questions, Mr. President.
You don't appear to have any questions. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against Senate Bill 566? The chair sees none. The question's on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agree in the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none and the main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 53, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Ms. Secretary, can you please read the caption of Senate Bill 605?
Senate Bill 605, a bill by Senators Burke of the 11th, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 5 of Chapter 8 of Title 34 of the OCGA relating to contributions and payments in lieu of contributions relative to employment security, so as to provide for certain nonprofit organizations to have the option of making installment payments to finance unemployment benefits and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Insurance and Labor recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Burke of the 11th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Insurance and Labor offer the following substitute to Senate Bill 605, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 5 of Chapter 8 of Title 34 of the OCGA relating to contributions and payments in lieu of contributions relative to employment security, so as to provide for certain nonprofit organizations to have the option of making installment payments to finance unemployment benefits and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair once again recognizes the senator from the 11th to present Senate Bill 605.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 605 is a bill that would allow a large nonprofit in the city of Atlanta that did great work during the pandemic to schedule unemployment payments to the Department of Labor over 3 years, but they will be paid in full, but it will be a 3-year payback. That's all it does. I'll be glad to answer questions, Mr. President.
You don't appear to have any questions. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against Senate Bill 605? The chair sees none. The question's on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agree in the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 52, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Ms. Secretary, can you please read the caption of Senate Resolution 463?
Senate Resolution 463 by Senators Guta the 51st and others, a resolution creating the Joint Study Committee on the Electrification of Transportation and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Rules recommends that this resolution do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Mullis of the 53rd District Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the Majority Whip to present Senate Resolution 463.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a bill for you today. It's a joint study committee between the Senate and the House. And the topic of this will be very, very important to all of us. I'm sure you are knowledgeable of the recent legislation and policies that have been adopted by the Biden administration. They're predicting in the next 10 to 20 years that the combustible engine would be totally eliminated on our vehicles on the highways. Obviously, when you go from a drastic change from everyone driving millions of cars a day that are relying on gasoline or diesel, and you go to electric, then there's going to be an impact to our systems. There's a lot of issues that we've been looking at this year, and we realize it's a bigger issue than we can handle in one session, so we're asking you to support this study committee. The study committee will look at issues dealing with direct sales of electric vehicles, like the huge economic development project that was just announced by Rivian coming to Georgia. It's going to invest $5 billion in our state. We'll also be looking at funding transportation and how do we pay for our roads and bridges if we no longer have the gas tax. We currently collect $2 billion a year in motor fuel tax from our automobiles. If we go to a completely electric vehicle inventory in the next 20 years, we've got to find a way to replace that money in order to maintain those bridges and our roads. We have one of the best road systems in our country under the leadership of Russell McMurray at GDOT. We also have to look at how do we put charging stations around our state. The federal government has just appropriated $5 billion to be spent over the next 5 years to create a charging network system that will allow states like Georgia to be able to use federal funding to put these charging stations out. Georgia is earmarking $134 million for this network. The plan has to be submitted by August 1st of this year. This study committee will be looking at that as well. And we'll also be looking at how do convenience stores get charging stations. How do they buy their electricity and resell it for the electric cars? There's a lot of debate on whether that should be a deal that would violate the territorial act that we have today with Georgia Power. So this study committee will be important to us. We'll come back next year with a lot of information and some new policies that will move us into the next phase of electrification of transportation. The committee is made up of 11 members, 4 of which will be from the Senate, the chairman of Regulated Industries, the chairman of Transportation, and 2 members appointed by the Lieutenant Governor will be on that committee, along with 4 House members from basically the same committee structure over in the House. Would be the Transportation Chairman and the Chairman of Energy, Utilities, and Telecommunications. We will also add the Department of Transportation. The Commissioner will be on this study committee, the Commissioner of Economic Development, and also the Chair of the Georgia Public Service Commission. Mr. President, I'm happy to take questions. I'll yield for your support.
You don't appear to have any questions.
Thank you very much.
Any other senator wish to speak for or against Senate Resolution 463? The chair sees none. Is there objection to agreeing the report of the committee which is favorable to the adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none and the main question is ordered. Questions on the adoption of the resolution? All those in favor vote yea. Opposed nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the adoption of the resolution, the yeas are 53, the nays are 0. This resolution, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore adopted. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption of Senate Bill 553?
Senate Bill 553, a bill by Senators Harper of the 7th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 7 of Title 52 of the OCGA relating to general provisions of registration, operation, and sale of watercraft so as to authorize any person 15 years of age or older to operate a Class 1, Class 2, or Class 3 vessel on any of the waters of this state if such person meets certain conditions pertaining to licensure and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Natural Resources and the Environment recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Harper of the 7th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Natural Resources and the Environment offers the following substitute to the Senate Bill 553, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 7 of Title 52 of the OCGA relating to general provisions of registration, operation, and sale of watercraft and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 29th to present Senate Bill 553.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, Senate Bill 553 does the simple thing of treating boating the same way we treat the operation of an automobile when it comes to learner's permits. What SB 553 does is it allows a 15-year-old to operate a boat as long as there's a responsible 18-year-old in the boat who is capable, 18 or older, in the boat who is capable of taking control of the craft should a problem arise. We had a very in-depth committee meeting in Natural Resources and Environment. I appreciate the chairman's work on this bill. I appreciate the questions offered by the committee, and I would encourage the Senate chamber to support SB 553. It goes a long way in making our waterways safer and preparing the future boaters here in Georgia to be able to get out and operate their watercraft in a safe manner. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll yield any questions if there are any.
You don't appear to have any questions.
Then I yield the well.
Actually, you do.
Yes, sir.
Sorry about that. The chair recognizes the good senator from the 50th with a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does Senator yield?
I do.
Does this affect weekend boating?
Boaters in Georgia will be able to boat on weekends. They'll be able to early boat. They'll be able to boat often. And one requirement is that they should have a picture ID while they are out boating. And what I think this will do is I think it'll improve not only in-state boating, but I think it'll attract a lot of people from outside the state of Georgia who may want to come and boat because they want to be a part of the boating here in Georgia.
Just as a point of clarity, you're saying boating. Perfect. You have no more questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against Senate Bill 553? The chair sees none. The question's on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. Secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 50, the nays are 2. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Chair recognizes the majority leader.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent the Senate's rules be suspended in order to table the remainder of the bills on the rules calendar.
The majority leader has asked for unanimous consent that the Senate suspend its rules to table the remainder of the bills on the rules calendar. Is there objection? The chair hears none, and the remainder of the bills are placed on the table. Here's the posture we're in. We're going to take a 45-minute break and go to lunch. We've got sandwiches in the ante room for y'all. We're going to take a 45-minute break and come back at 12:45 to carry on with our business.